Welcome to the Schmoeville podcast, the podcast that talks all about your favorites. Mark Ellis, Christian Harloff, and the whole gang on the Schmoes Know channel and the Collider video channel. My name is Ryan Snelling, and I am super excited to be doing this Schmoeville episode. Right now, I'm even more excited than when I talked to Christian or when I talked to Mark. This is going to be a huge episode. Huge. I am joined by a complete stranger, but that's okay because I feel like he is the bizarro me. It's Brian Davids. What's up, buddy?
Mr. Snelling, it is an honor and a privilege to be here on the Schmoeville podcast, episode 20.
Yeah, episode 20. We've been doing it it's been 5 months now, right? 5 months? Is that good math? Yeah. And almost half a year. I can't believe I've been doing Schmoeville for almost half a year. That's pretty insane. And I can't believe that we have such great fans, people like you that emailed me and asked to come on the show. I greatly appreciate all of you guys. I just want to touch on something real quick. I need to get an update from Paul Wolf because he told me that he was going to be joining me again last week. I know he's still very busy trying to figure out what's going to happen in the upcoming school year for him. So this week, I promise I will get in touch with Paul and see where he's at and if he expects to come back. So anyway, give a shout out to Paul on Twitter at the Mr. MR Wolf, WULFF, and just send him some love. Tell him that you miss him on the Schmoeville podcast, and I don't know, maybe he'll answer one of you guys before he responds to me. But there's that. But anyway, Brian, I'm really excited that you asked to come on the show because I've had some great guests on here, but I've been looking for someone ever since Paul left. I've been looking for someone who knows his way around the mic, a little bit more experienced as a podcaster. And I looked you up, man. I really dig what you're doing over at Film Schlubs podcast.
Thanks, man. I have been, when you say I've been asking you, it's more like harassing you to come on.
I wouldn't say that. 2 emails, that's hardly harassment. You're doing fine.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Howard Stern wrap-up show. I love the post-game recap of the Schmoes Know live show, not just the live show or the main show, the entire network. So
absolutely,
I really appreciate what you're doing just as a fan.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That was so sweet. How long have you been a fan of the Schmoes?
I started watching, I'd say about 2013. I think I led with AMC and then made my way over to Schmoes. But I've been in this particular network for about 3 years now. Right.
Yeah. See, everyone's always, I'm the amateur here. And that's usually always the case. Everyone's like, I've been around for, a couple years or so. But yeah, I'm glad you hit me up again. And I respect the fact that you, quote, harassed me because, I don't know, I respect the people who go after what they want. If you want to come on Schmoeville podcast, hell yeah. I've done that several times. When I want something, I just go after it. So that might be why I'm actually here doing Schmoeville. So anyway, I just respect that, and I'm glad you hit me up. And I'm going to let you give a proper plug to Film Schlubs at the end of the show. Okay.
Cool, man. Thanks.
But again, everybody go check out Film Schlubs. It's a podcast, and he'll tell you more about it later on. So we had this series going on where we were sort of discussing with different people how the Collider and Schmoes can grow their channel. And when we got to talking before the episode, I realized that you have a lot to say as well. So I know I supposedly ended the series, but let me just erase that. It's not a series. It's an ongoing conversation. And I'm going to kind of give you the floor here because I know you've had a lot of time to take this in, and I know you have your own thoughts as to what these guys can do to grow their channel. So I'll just give you the floor and we'll get going here.
Yeah, like I said, I've been a fan for about 3 years, and I've watched these channels grow a significant amount. However, there's no reason that they shouldn't be on the same level as your Chris Stuckman, as your Jeremy Johns, as your Screen Junkies. And people forget when Campia had his falling out with AMC Movie Talk was over 300,000 subscribers. So as of about 13 months ago, they basically hit the reset button on AMC, now Collider, and they've been playing catch up ever since. Obviously, that allowed for the partnership between Collider and Schmoes, which has been a wonderful thing for everybody involved. But at the same time, I want to see quicker growth take place, and I think that can happen as long as the Schmoedown is utilized in more than just one way, which is currently league play.
Okay.
Currently, if you are heavily involved in the online movie space, you're going to be more interested in the Schmoedown because you see all of your favorite personalities competing week in and week out. I think that they can achieve more growth the same way that Screen Junkies achieved a great amount of growth with something like Honest Trailers, where, as you pointed out previously, that went viral. That is something that transcended just the online movie space, and it's made its way into the mainstream. You've got Time Magazine referencing Honest Trailers. So I'm not saying this is going to be their Honest Trailers, but the Schmoedown can be, at the very least, their version of movie fights. And that can happen as long as you open the door for episodes that are not about league play. For example, use it as a promotional vehicle. Now, this is just an example. I don't expect it to happen. But let's say Matt Damon is making the rounds promoting Jason Bourne. If Collider books him, you have a lead-up tournament where we establish the top contender for a Jason Bourne Schmoedown.
Okay.
And that top contender faces Matt Damon in a Jason Bourne-based Schmoedown. It's just an exhibition. It's just a one-off. It's a way for Matt Damon to come on and have some fun, just like he would on Jimmy Fallon playing Flip Cup or whatever weird stuff Jimmy Fallon has his guests do. And it's a way to bring an audience that doesn't know about this channel yet, as they are fans of Matt Damon, they're fans of the Bourne franchise. It's a way to introduce them to this channel and see what they're doing by way of this special promotional exhibition match between Matt Damon and whatever the top contender is.
So to apply what you're saying to something that actually happened on the channel, the day they had the Russo brothers in there, are you saying they should have put Jason Inman against the Russo brothers in a Marvel Cinematic Universe Schmoedown?
Absolutely. You take the top contender at Collider or Schmoes or whomever. So, for example, John Campea. Have him face off versus the Russo brothers, and you have Marvel-based questions. Who knows the Marvel universe better?
That's a good point. I like
that.
And
it's not about who wins or loses. It's about entertainment. It's about the fun. You don't want to embarrass these celebrities. You just want to show them having fun. And trivia is a great way to have a good time and laugh at what you don't know and relish in what you do know. At the same time, if there is a new Star Wars movie coming out, say Rogue One, let's have a Star Wars-based tournament where it's about the topic. Reason being is, when a film like Rogue One is coming out, and we saw this with The Force Awakens, everybody is eating up Star Wars at that time. So countless people, including myself, I'm sure you did the same, we all rewatched the original trilogy leading up to the release of The Force Awakens. So trends online, they go in waves based on what's coming out. There are more people interested in Star Wars when there's a new movie coming out. So adapt the Schmoedown around that trend. Have a Star Wars-based tournament within Collider, within Schmoes, within their network of friends, and see who comes out on top as the best Star Wars trivia contestant of the group. And that way you are riding that wave of popularity, since everybody is interested in Star Wars ahead of the Rogue One release or ahead of the Episode 8 release. I don't know about you, but in the case of my podcast, people are more interested in a particular episode right after the movies come out, if the movie's coming out on Blu-ray, they are checking out our past reviews on that movie or that franchise. So it's a way to capitalize on that trend that's taking place. So you've got the promotional vehicle for certain guests. You've got topic-based tournaments instead of just miscellaneous questions. The third option is just a celebrity versus celebrity exhibition where Max Landis and Kevin Smith could come on and just square off on a variety of topics.
Right. So I think the things that are hindering them, like Christian had the idea to do a Star Wars specific Schmoedown, and that's in the works, obviously. Like not just contestant wise, but question wise as well, from what I understand.
Right.
Because he was going to get Sam Witwer and Freddie Prinze Jr. So I think that could be similar to what you're talking about, especially if they put it out around the time that, say, Rebels was premiering, or
exactly.
When Rogue One was coming out. A huge key for them, by the way, is I don't know exactly how this works, but since Boyega is a huge fan, Christian needs to hold Boyega, like hold him accountable. Like, hey, you said, and maybe book Boyega for a Star Wars Schmoedown. Like, that would be huge, but obviously that's not something that can happen overnight. But I agree, if you ride these waves with the trends. I mean, but that's content, that's YouTube content in general, right? So, like, anytime... like with my own podcast, I put out these episodes called Never Before Seen, where you visit a movie that you never saw before, whether it's like Blade Runner, and then you talk about it then. And those types of episodes, when I post them on my channel, I feel like my impression is, and you can tell me what you think since you're a podcaster too, when I put up an episode like that, that is primarily for my existing fans. Because there are a lot less people looking for content on Blade Runner than there are going to be Alien Covenant or something along those lines. So when you put out those kind of retrospective things, they're more for existing users. And that's why, you know, in general, just with Collider, everything's current. So I see what you're saying, that design a Schmoedown to kind of ride that same wave as well. I like it. I think it's just, I agree with you. I think it's a lot of work and it can't happen overnight, because I feel like the Schmoedown is already hard enough to organize. But if they were able to pull it off, or maybe have it go down at a press junket or something. Like, I don't know exactly how those work, but if you can get, I know was it Copster and Finstock who tag teamed the press junket with Everybody Wants Some?
Yeah, I think that was just for the DVD release.
Okay. Well,
point being, though, if Freddie Prinze and Sam Witwer are promoting Rebels, they can come down to the studio for the day. They can record a match where they face off versus each other. They can record a match where it's a tag team versus Mark and Christian, or Campy and Knapsack. They can record matches where they're partaking in a tournament with everybody. So you've got 3 different episodes that can be spread out however they see fit. But most importantly, you are bringing an audience that is not already familiar with this network. You are bringing fans of Freddie, fans of Sam. You are bringing Rebels fans to the mix. And I know a lot of Rebels fans are fans of Jedi Council already, but the point still applies to other actors, other celebrities, where you're bringing their followings to the mix that otherwise wouldn't know about what Schmoedown is.
Right.
And what separates Schmoedown from something like movie fights is that when I'm sitting at home, I can compete in a match as the questions are being asked. I can't compete from home vicariously when I'm watching movie fights. I'm watching them argue. I can't engage in that argument. Right. However, when a question is asked in Schmoedown, I can see if I know it before it's answered on the actual screen. So that's the key to me, is fine-tuning Schmoedown and expanding it to a different type of delivery, more than just league play.
I think the thing that hinders them the most, again, is money and time. Because from what I know, they are pretty much just fully stocked when it comes to time in their day at the studio. And that'll sort of bridge into what I wanted to talk about next. I just want to make sure you got everything out about that, though, before I transition. Are you good?
And this wasn't going to be an overnight
sure
fulfillment. This was something that I would approach long term.
Yeah, something to think about, for sure. I think their biggest thing is budget and time that will hinder them from growing like these other channels do. Because Chris Stuckman can grow better because he can make a video whenever he wants.
To that point, Chris Stuckman is only working on his YouTube channel. Chris Stuckman's top priority, his only priority, is his YouTube channel.
Right.
Mark and Christian have multiple priorities. Most of their time goes towards Collider because Collider is now footing the bill for Schmoes. Furthermore, Mark's got a stand-up career. Christian's got a family. So basically, Schmoes is where everybody moonlights from their regular day jobs. So in that sense, it is definitely a bigger challenge to grow Schmoes than it is for Chris Stuckman to grow his one and only priority. Thus, if everybody focuses on growing Collider, I think there's going to be a trickle-down effect to Schmoes at the same time. In other words, if you grow Collider, you grow Schmoes at the same time.
I agree completely. I think they are symbiotic in that way.
Right.
So I think the main thing, though, is growing. I think Collider is what they need to. What they already do. I feel like they concentrate more on Collider than Schmoes, obviously. So
Collider's footing the bill. They have to focus on.
I was gonna say that, and the fact that now that's an app. Like that's kind of amazing to me that they're big enough for an app. I don't know how easy it is to become an app on Roku or Apple TV, but I agree. I think Collider is the thing that can bring in. I mean, that's how we got in, right? You came in from AMC, I came in from Collider, so I'm not knocking Schmoes Know in any way, but I agree, and I don't know who wouldn't. That Collider is the main thing they need to focus on. Schmoes Know is sort of they're Stuckman. It's still what I like about Schmoes Know's YouTube channel. It just feels like it's two guys in the basement. You know what I mean? And there's some kind of there's a different charm to the Schmoes Know channel. So, I just think it's interesting.
The Schmoes Know live show is my favorite show of both channels. I love the casual approach. I love the conversation. I love how laid back it is. It's not this strict format like movie talk is. And you get a feel for who these people are. You see their personalities shine. It's just a fun experience to watch. It's just like the Howard Stern show. Christian and I both grew up fans of the Howard Stern show, and he's made his own whack pack by way of his staff. The Howard Stern show created characters with their staff, but they also had a whack pack within the audience. But Christian has created a hybrid where his staff is essentially the whack pack.
Yeah, definitely.
The thing is, though, they spend so much time on Collider because that's how Schmoes Know can stay in existence. That is how they are able to have a set at the Collider studios.
Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think if Collider ended tomorrow, I still think Mark and Christian would be doing what they're doing. It just, unfortunately, again, they'd have to hit the refresh button and figure it out, and then we'd be sitting and waiting for Phase 7. So yeah, I mean, it would probably come to a screeching halt, but I don't think it's the end all be all. You know what I mean?
Well, the show would continue on as it always has, but to have this current setup, obviously with the set that they have, to have what they have now,
which is everything they wanted. I mean,
they have to maintain their obligation to Collider first and foremost. Case in point, this week's live show, Christian was absent for a few minutes, as was Riley and Makuga, because they had to go shoot a reaction to the Rogue One trailer that dropped. So that gives you an idea of how important it is that they prioritize Collider, even if they're doing a separate show at that very same moment. Another case in point, Comic-Con. Yeah. Christian was off doing Fandango. Mark was doing some Collider stuff. Makuga was doing Film HQ. So the principals involved at Schmoes Know were not doing the coverage for their own channel because they had obligations to these other channels, these other programs that allow them to do Schmoes Know, that foot the bill for Schmoes Know, that keep Schmoes Know running. That allows for Ace and the Wanger crew, the B team, to step up and do a great job, which they did. But that shows you how they can't prioritize Schmoes Know the way that Chris Stuckman or Jeremy Johns can prioritize their channels, because that is all they're doing.
That's a good point. And to talk more about what Collider can do, I have a huge thing that I want to talk about. I've been thinking about this all week. I want to talk about the inclusion of TV recaps on the Collider channel. So this came up because, we're approaching fall. And this time last year, it was Campia that made the announcement that they were going to try doing these TV recaps, and they were going to be daily recaps. So we had Arrow, The Flash, help me out here, Supergirl, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they tried The Blacklist and Empire, and eventually got to Walking Dead. I think that's all of them, up until Game of Thrones in the spring. But basically, Campia said that they were going to try it, and they picked those shows. And, it gets going, and I don't watch any of those shows in prime time, so I'm not watching TV recaps. I'm not someone who, I can't even guarantee that if they did a TV recap of a show that I was really interested in, I would have the time to watch it, only because I do so many other things involving that. I do my own TV recaps, so I'm not saying I wouldn't. But as far as growing the channel, I'm objectively speaking that I think TV recaps are crucial in growing Collider. Absolutely crucial. And so I brought this up to Christian. My first question was, how big does TV Talk have to get before it becomes a daily show? And he's not sure. I know they've mentioned it, especially when it first got started. Hey, maybe if we grow this, it'll become a daily show. But I don't think, not that they're not happy with TV Talk, I just don't think we're even really close to it becoming a daily show. And he also said, to touch on that, he also said he doesn't think they're going to be doing any recap shows this fall. And I told him, you're killing me. Like, I think it's huge. And he says that no one watches them and that they are too expensive. So I thought long and hard about this. And I know you have ideas, because we talked briefly about it earlier. But I've got a couple ideas, and I did some research in what all they did last year, and to see what we can fix and alter. Okay, so you ready to talk about this? Because I'm excited.
Totally.
So I looked at a lot of their recaps, and so just to touch on his first point is that no one watches them. Okay, so I added up a lot of the averages of these recap shows. So this was season 3 of Arrow, and let me just touch on that. Let's touch on that first. I think that I don't know that Campia was the primary person who started these recap shows and organized this last year, but he was the one that voiced it. So you might hear me say
he started it all. He did all the casting. It was.
Well, I don't know how much was like Dennis and Christian and what I was saying. So I'm just gonna label it as Campia, but don't hold me to it. It's not that.
Campia was still running the operation when they launched the TV recap idea.
Right. So I think the first mistake was the number of panelists, the shows that they recapped, and then the length of the recap. I think all of those are issues when it comes to the budget, which Christian expressed, and that no one watches them. So to touch on the no one watches them point, I averaged up, Arrow gets around 27,000 averages 27,000 views last year. The Flash, almost 38,000. Walking Dead, 37,000. Rebels was even like 38,000. So all of these, I don't know if they sound like big numbers to you or small numbers. They're not quite like Movie Talk, Heroes, and Jedi Council, but top 10 averages 29, 30,000. So they're in the same ballpark as top 10 right now, and they're not too far away from TV Talk numbers. So one thing to compare all of those to is their Daredevil recaps. Okay, do you remember when they binged Daredevil?
I love that approach where they were basically there on a weekend. They'd watch an episode, then record a short recap of that episode before watching the next one.
Exactly. And I'm not asking that they binge everything in that way. Like if it's a big Netflix release, I like that idea, but they don't have to do that. They get the same numbers. Actually, their Daredevil recaps average about 40,000 viewers, okay? Mm-hmm. And those videos were averaged about 5 minutes long. So in a fraction of the time, they can get the same viewer count. So they don't have to worry about taking up too much time or being too expensive. They also didn't hire these outside panelists, and they're not usually 4 panelists. For the most part, those recaps were only 2 or 3 people. So they did 2 people, about 5 minutes of a recap, and put it up, and they got the same exact play count as, or a similar average as Flash and Arrow, okay? So I feel like if they adapt this Daredevil format, they can really punch a lot of these out and bring in new fans. I'll stop there. Do you have anything to touch on that?
So you want them to wait until a season of The Flash is in the books and then do a comprehensive recap all at once?
What they did for Daredevil is fine for shows that are released Netflix style. Like,
right.
what I'm saying is, if they choose to also do The Flash, which is a primetime, comes out weekly,
you just want a shorter version of it.
2 or 3 panelists watching The Flash, 5. Actually, I would love like a 10 to 15 minute recap, honestly. But just in general, less panelists, shorter time. Don't feel like, obviously commit to it, but don't feel like it hinders your entire day, and put it out there and you'll get the same play count. And not only that, but TV trends, in my opinion, much better than film does. Like when you look at the Twitter trends, for example, the things that are hashtagged, it's every night of the week it is a TV show. And movies very rarely actually go trending unless it's a movie trailer. You know what I mean? So
my podcast, our TV based discussions have much bigger numbers than our movie based discussions.
Yes, and my TV show videos on my YouTube channel do better than my movie content.
People can watch movies whenever they want. There's no urgency to watch certain movies, but with TV, people don't want to be spoiled. So
I agree.
They're rushing right out to watch their favorite TV shows so they can be part of that conversation online and not risk being spoiled online. So there's a different approach to the urgency in watching each.
I just don't want Christian to be down on the idea of a TV recap. I think their mistake was how they approached it last year. My friend Jay, who was on a couple weeks ago, who doesn't watch Collider, he was making fun of Christian for speeding through the TV talk when they were discussing Comic-Con stuff. So Jay likes to say that Christian hates TV. He's obviously joking, but I don't know. I just don't want Christian to be down on TV recaps. I think it's actually very important that they do them. And to touch on the shows that they do, instead of making it like a fall to spring network television, I have a huge problem with that as well. Like I have no, like The Flash obviously does pretty well. I mean, almost 40,000. That's almost TV talk numbers. But I mean, their Game of Thrones recaps, you know how many viewers they averaged? Over
100,000, right?
Yes, 167,789. Yes, that is Game of Thrones. That's the biggest show on TV. I understand that. My point is, move away from the network shows, because not only do they, network shows keep you committed for 22 weeks of the year. And if you instead going to your Schmoedown point, if you follow the trend, every 12 weeks you get a new show and you can knock out a cable series. And I don't mean to make this sound like Schmoes Know needs to sound more like Film Beef, but that's what like Film Beef does. That's what my other TV podcast used to do, and we used to do just fine. So just kind of rotate, you know what I mean? Like right now, they 100% they should be discussing Mr. Robot. Like that drives me nuts, and I know that they talk about it on TV Talk, but I really can't stand that. So I'll stop there and let you get a word in, and then I'll touch more. I have more points to make.
Quality has a big part to do with it. 24 episodes of Arrow, especially last season. Last season was the worst season of Arrow yet. That show has been trending downwards for a long time, and yet they were doing weekly recaps for no apparent reason other than it's on brand for Collider to be doing a comic book show. Right. They have a lot of comic book fans. I see the reasoning, but at the same time, you'd be getting a more passionate, more loyal fan base if you did a show like Fargo or Mr. Robot, because while they have less viewers, they have a type of fan that is a zealot or
Rabid.
enthusiastic. They will eat up anything they can get when it comes to these type of shows because the quality is that much higher. Last year, I had zero interest in watching anything Arrow related. I could barely get through the show itself, let alone a recap.
Yeah, for sure. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Time and budget, I think, is a big part of this as well. You've got to be there after hours. Do you know if they got screeners for a lot of these shows?
See, I don't know. I feel like they did sometimes. I mean, they had to because the recap show would come out like right after.
Because you can't convince a lot of these people, especially the regulars, to stay after hours to watch Arrow and do a recap show. They want to go home. They've been there all day. I get the reasoning to get their studio time done during the day and get out of there, unless they have screeners, which makes the availability to record around their schedule possible.
And I think they could definitely make screeners happen with a show like Mr. Robot, or even a show that's not as well received, but like Animal Kingdom. Like,
heck, I get screeners, so if I can get screeners, they can get screeners much easier than I can.
Especially for a show like Mr. Robot. So, like, because last year when Mr. Robot came out and we were doing it on Film Beef, their fan base was so rabid, but also their social media presence was so good. And this speaks to Mr. Robot in general. Like, just how they are on Twitter with their fans, they're amazing, and they retweet the content. So even you could even like have one of the networks or one of the channels like on your side, and you could get to a point where like right now, The Verge is doing the digital after show. Like, there's no reason Collider can't be the digital after show for some random show like Animal Kingdom, for example, like a show that just came out and you're following the trend and it needs an after show. Like, I think they need to look more into those type of opportunities instead of dismissing TV recaps in general.
Stop following the ratings. Don't just go by the biggest Nielsen ratings so that you think it can translate into more YouTube views. If you focus on a quality show, typically cable, you're going to get a more enthusiastic viewer. But because you're going against the grain, you're not going to have as many competitors covering the same show. That way you can corner that market for that show and have the majority of its fans watching your recap show, because there aren't as many as there are for The Walking Dead or for a big network show. So sometimes it pays to go against the grain rather than being one of 25 after shows for The Flash or for any other huge network show that they were initially covering.
My favorite thing about doing these kind of episodes is that Christian can be listening to this and we could be driving him nuts because we could just be recycling conversations that he's already had and he's already like vetoed or passed all these bills, and like he could just be getting so frustrated like, guys, listen, I've tried all of these things, it's not gonna work. I just imagine him getting mad at me. I just think it's funny, but I'm gonna keep talking anyway because I'm hoping that, I'm not saying that we have the solutions. I think these are things, again, to consider, but more importantly, the people that are listening to this podcast, the fans of Schmoeville, the people on the Facebook group, use these things to create your own opinions, and then let Christian and Mark know what you think as well. So if anything, I just want this to drive conversation. It's not the end all be all. I don't have all the answers. I just wanted to make that clear before we move forward.
Keep in mind, they only have one set. So when you're covering half a dozen TV shows, the recording schedule gets very complicated unless you have screeners. However, by eliminating these TV recaps, I think that freed up the budget for them to create a TV Talk, which is a more comprehensive show that recaps all of television. It also allowed them to create a show like Nightmares, to bring on a show like the Top 10 show. So I think they are trying to, instead of doing the recaps, they're just trying to spread out the type of content they have, but not being so specific like they were last year with that amount of budget. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I want to touch on is how this relates to TV Talk. So obviously we have this group of people that does TV Talk every Monday. You know, they know a lot about TV. They like
That's my favorite show on Collider right now, by the way.
Mine too. And mainly just because of the personalities. But Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. We both love TV talk. I want the TV recaps to just be pulled right out of the show. Like last week, they did the recap of Mr. Robot, which I was fine with, but I usually just skip those portions. Or they also did the night of in the same episode, right?
Right.
So, and I'm not caught up on the night of, so I just skipped that part of TV talk. So I understand some people might think, well, it's the trending conversation. Take the time out of TV talk and make that a completely separate video. That's if you can shorten TV talk and you've got your crew right there, right after that. That's when you make your 5 to 10 minute TV recap of Mr. Robot. Put that up as a separate video. That's what I think. And I know that only really applies to Mondays, because I don't know how often Makuga and Sasha and David and Sinead are in the office for the rest of the week. And hopefully they can just figure that out. But that would be my solution when it comes to the talent and the time, really. Because, I mean, I think you could probably trim some fat off of every show and maybe clean up your day in general. And I'm not saying like 30 minutes, just a few minutes. Like, I think taking the recaps out of TV talk would be amazing. And think about movie talk. They don't ever really they don't take the time to review a movie on movie talk. So trim the fat on TV talk a little bit and then do just a completely separate recap right then and there. What do you think of that?
Currently, they do not isolate their TV show discussions like they do on Movie Talk, where they take a specific topic. While it's still in the main Movie Talk show, they'll create a separate video that people can watch on its own.
Right.
They do not do that for TV Talk for a show like Mr. Robot currently, correct?
Correct. They've tried it here and there. Like, I think since the TV Talk team has been in place, I think they like put out a random Banshee season 2 review or whatever, and then they threw out like a random Preacher recap.
But those weren't part of TV Talk. What I'm saying is they don't break down TV Talk into little chunks that people can watch.
No.
Okay.
But I don't want that either, though, because then you don't have you don't really have the introduction portion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're just pulling straight from the TV Talk episode, then it's just like, okay, so now we're talking about Mr. Robot. What did you think? I would like it to actually still be its own show. Like, hey, everybody, welcome back. This is who we got. Do the intro and then go right into it. But I don't know. I don't think it would be as good if they just pulled straight from TV Talk.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, I love the format of TV Talk, but there is definitely a demand or a need for them to have a separate Mr. Robot conversation or a separate The Night of conversation. And mainly, I just want Christian to watch Mr. Robot. That's all I want from this conversation.
I just want Christian to love TV. I think that's what we're getting at here.
He doesn't have time to watch TV when you think about it. I mean, when does he have the time to really watch?
I don't know. It doesn't have to be Christian. I mean, it could be anybody. I just think these are all things to consider. I mean, I think he said no one watches them and they're too expensive. To speak on the no one watching them, I think part of it is the shows they picked. I don't know. I just don't see how the numbers are that much less than something like Top 10 or TV Talk, especially if they do it the right way. I mean, these, again, I don't know if I touched on this point, but this is primarily to bring in new subscribers. That was my main point, if I didn't get it across. I think it's crucial to grow as a channel to do these. People find their favorite TV shows and their recaps all the time on YouTube. If they're finding Film Beef TV recaps, they're going to find Colliders for sure. So
it's a challenge in the sense that if one of your hosts doesn't want to watch Arrow every week, it's kind of tough to convince them to do that and take on that responsibility. And that's why they had to hire outside people. And that's how Makuga got an opportunity to have a bigger role. That's how Rocha got an opportunity to have a bigger role, was thanks to these TV recaps. So I get why certain people may say no to having to commit to a 24-week Arrow recap show, but they shouldn't be recapping Arrow. They just shouldn't. There's more quality out there. Fargo, The Night of, Mr. Robot, Game of Thrones they're going to do, of course. The Walking Dead, they're probably going to keep doing. regardless. But actually, then again, are you saying that Christian said they're done completely as of the rest of the year?
He said, I don't think we'll be doing any recap shows.
Because of TV talk. Okay, well,
not because of TV. I think it's strictly to the point where he just thinks no one watches them and they're too expensive. So that's why I had to bring up all these things, because I think those are some solutions to fix some of that. So I mean, obviously, if people just decide they don't want to do it, or it takes up too much of their time, I don't know what else they have going on, people like Makuga or whatever, then obviously it's not going to happen anyway. But I think these things are worth looking into. So
they absolutely are, as long as you pick the right selection, and they were not doing that previously.
They're Stranger Things recap shows. That got 55,000. So it's like. Yeah. That was a huge show that followed a trend, and I think
follow the trends.
I think it did very
ride
well
that wave.
Themselves. Exactly. Okay, we need to transition into the Schmoedown. We are already like 40 minutes into this podcast. Let's talk about last night's Schmoedown. I think I like doing the Schmoeville podcast after the Friday Schmoedown, because the past 5 months we've had to talk about the previous Schmoedown and not the one that's actually happened the day that the podcast is out. But now, since we're recording it late, let's talk about Mantz vs. Rocha number 2. Mantz and Rocha, the first one, was arguably the greatest Schmoedown of this season, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it has everything that I love. It has the shit talking. It has the larger than life personalities that I love about the Schmoedown. And these two people, it's funny because this rivalry wasn't even manufactured for the Schmoedown. Like, it started at Screen Junkies movie fights. Like, I think that's another plus, that there's so much history between these two people. Not just in the Schmoedown. This is arguably going to be an even bigger match, because Rocha is out for blood more than usual because of Bespin. This, I don't know about you, but this is arguably my most anticipated Schmoedown that we've seen. How did you feel about it going in?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this has received quite a bit of hype for obvious reasons, given the Bespin ordeal. And both of these guys, they like to play up this rivalry. I mean, some people, you can tell they're trying to play up a rivalry or build some hype, but they're kind of just going along with it. But these two are genuinely enjoying themselves as they are prepping for this matchup. And man, Rocha, why so serious? I mean, he takes this so seriously in the moment, and I understand he wants to get his revenge, but man, there's a darkness in that guy, it seems, and I'm glad for his sake that he got the W. I'm glad that he pulled it off, because I wouldn't want to see his reaction if he lost again.
If Rocha lost again, I think he would be unhinged after that match, and we'd be in a lot more dangerous situation, or at least they would be in that studio.
And this is something that I wish so many other people could experience. I mean, this is a rivalry that so many people could be entertained by, and this is something that movie fights, I don't think they have this type of rivalry that can carry itself forward in and of itself, not just the matchup itself, but just the back and forth tweets and memes and all that. I don't know that movie fights can capture that sort of thing. So that's what makes the Schmoedown such a unique entity, because of things like this.
And the meme portion of the Schmoedown was like the longest meme portion that we've seen yet. I mean, there's just, and you could even tell by the audience. The audience was more involved in last night's Schmoedown. The audience in studio, was more involved in this Schmoedown than I think any of the others. I mean, I
love the background audience participating, laughing. I love that about shows, even podcasts, when there's someone in the distance laughing just by themselves almost. I like that added effect. But if you were to take just the Mantz Rocha matches, that is the perfect representation of what the Schmoedown can be.
100% agree. We're totally on the same page. And I think that's pretty much how everyone feels. Who was your favorite going in? Who did you pick to win?
I was pretty certain that Rocha would get his revenge. He should have won the first time. He should not have gotten Bespin wrong. And it just seemed destined for him in that case. But before I forget, I want to bring up Christian and Inman from the week prior.
Yeah, do it.
Christian survived an unbelievable comeback attempt on Inman's part. I mean, he had a comfortable lead.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So lately we've had some great matchups, I think. And even if it doesn't always have to be a close matchup at the very end to be entertaining, as Christian and Inman proved. A glorious comeback attempt can be a unique form of entertainment in and of itself.
What's funny about this match specifically, the fact that you thought Rocha deserved to win all along, the fact that Mantz pulled movie release dates on the wheel, that might have been one of the biggest moments in Schmoedown history. Just the uproar. And I mean, even in my room alone, I said, oh my God, and put my hands on my head. And I've never had that kind of cerebral reaction to a Schmoedown before. And I couldn't believe it. And unfortunately, I think he only got 2 of 4 of those questions, and it kind of was a little underwhelming. Granted, yes, they were random movies. Probably movies that Mantz hasn't thought to index in his brain. So I don't even know if I expected him to know those, even though he is the human IMDb. So unfortunately, that just the setup was so huge, and that did not pay off as well. And I think once I saw a little weakness in Mantz, I kind of thought Rocha was going to run away with it after that. I'm not going to lie. So I don't even remember who I picked was going to win that match. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because all I cared about was having a good match, and we got it. I mean, do you think this is the best one that we've gotten so far? Or do you still have another favorite?
Is this better than the first match?
Yeah.
I mean, the dramatic ending of the first one, and this one also ended dramatically. Oh man, it's hard to pick. I feel like I'm forgetting one that was... You know what? Actually, my favorite one was JTE and Ellis.
Oh, really? Why's that?
That matchup was an upset. First off, Ellis, last minute, got the victory. JTE, I want to make a quick point about him.
Okay.
I think he is a future champion as long as he stops running his mouth. He knows as much as anyone in this competition, but because he runs his mouth, he has bad karma. The universe works against him.
Oh, so you're saying it's karma that's involved.
If he stops talking crap, he's going to get those lucky breaks that he's not getting now because he talks smack.
Right. Okay. I see that. You're a guy, you believe in the cosmos. You're a spiritual guy.
Look at his matchups. He has lost so many heartbreakers for no good reason. So those lucky bounces could go his way, but the energy that he's forming by talking so much smack, that's not helping him.
What's the reason why Christian loses all the time?
I don't know. I'm only focused on JTE right now. I should have prepared for Christian, but...
I'm sorry.
Christian, I'm going to say that Christian is taxed. Christian is so busy running this thing that he's not as sharp as he could be if he was just competing. But JTE, if he stops running his mouth, he's got a belt in his future. That's all I have to say.
I guess it's okay that Christian's so busy spending all this time creating this content for us. Like, okay, I guess that's fine. Whatever, I'll let that pass. But
I would love to see a typical day in Christian's life. I mean, the guy is doing so much at one time.
I do too. I'm pushing for this, not the web series. I'm pushing for like a docu-series about what it's like to go through, and not just like watching the shows being filmed. I want to see the morning meetings. I want to see them not just talk about the movies that they're going to talk about, but have them cut up. I want to see their personalities behind the scenes even more than just like the Facebook. I know they do great Facebook live videos for the fans, but I want to see more than that. And I actually want to see it kind of like produced. Like I want to see someone take the time to sort of produce a docuseries as to what goes on behind the scenes. I would find that fascinating.
What about sketches? What if they wrote and produced some short sketches?
Well, I've touched on that a little bit. That's what I don't think they have time to do, unless like they wanted to get some of the behind the scenes crew involved, like someone like is it Jonathan who works behind the scenes?
Jonathan, Ray, those are names I keep hearing.
I think one of them doesn't work there anymore, if I remember that correctly. But
I think Jonathan did not come over initially, but then they were able to bring him on later.
Okay.
They were able to bring him back. But who are the Schmoes at the end of the day? Who are they? What did they start out as, the majority of them?
I mean, they were all working in the business.
They were stand-up comedians. Most of them have tried their hand at stand-up comedy. Ellis, Christian, McCouga, Finstock. They've all dabbled in it.
Ken
Knapsack as well. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone else too, but using those chops to create short pieces of entertainment is another way to differentiate themselves from their competition and create growth. And one more point about using Schmoedown in different ways. If you bring on a celebrity guest, potentially you can create a faux trailer for that matchup.
That's true.
So write a 3-minute trailer that promotes Matt Damon's appearance on the Schmoedown for a Matt Damon Schmoedown trivia contest, and you not do it in the style of honest trailers, but it's just a faux trailer where you build up the hype around it and promote the matchup that way, because it's just a one-off. It is a single form of entertainment.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, Matt Damon is just a general example. It could be anyone.
I love how much you have to say about all this. You can tell that you talked about this for years.
They are comedians.
But we'll see that once the web series comes out. Unfortunately, we just have to wait till December for that. And you know, like Christian has a plan for that. Like, he is again producing that as a pilot. He's going to be pitching it, so that could lead to something else entirely. So
Who is your favorite lady Schmo?
Who's my favorite lady Schmo? I probably love
of all time.
I think Sasha is probably my favorite.
Sasha is unbelievable. She fits the Schmoes Know Show to perfection.
I agree.
She's hilarious. She gets along so well with everybody. She has knowledge for days as well. She's got some stories from being within this space for a long time. I think she fits the show better than any lady Schmo at any point, whether it was Alicia, who I never felt like she fit in well with the dynamic of the Schmoes Know Show. I like Alicia, but given their interests and hers, I don't think she was the right fit. I don't think she's a good fit at Screen Junkies either, but I just wish someone would give her her own platform to do what she does best: classic movies, independence. Tiffany, I like the vibe that they have as this kind of Big Brother type teasing mentality that they have with her. But Sasha is the perfect fit for that show, and I hope that they can retain her forever, because I find myself glued to what Sasha's doing every episode, and when she's not there, I'm instantly deflated if she's not there.
Right. I agree. And that's why I more so have a wait and see attitude towards the web series. I have a lot of confidence, and again, we just have no idea where it could lead, and it could give us everything that you're asking for. So we're ready. She
used to be a celebrity chef. I mean,
that's nuts. Maybe her and Freddie Prinz can put out another cookbook together.
That's right.
That'd be great. I think we're ready to talk about the live show, and we'll do it quickly. Because honestly, I don't have too much to say about it, because it was mostly discussion based. Last night there were just like 3 huge giant chunks in there, but that's okay. There's a couple things I want to discuss. So for one, this is Schmoes Know Show 245, the Suicide Squad spoiler review, by the way. So you actually helped me realize this, but we have no Miri again this week, and you can probably speak more so to this. So if you just want to go ahead and you talk about Miri for a second.
So Miri got Roth Cornet's former position at HitFix, which was the host of Fandemonium. It's their little YouTube video show that's on HitFix as well as YouTube. And instantly, when I see one of our beloved Schmoes getting a job elsewhere, I get paranoid. I start to worry. And She wasn't in 3 weeks ago, neither was Sasha, because Sasha was on Fandemonium with Miri. The next week, Miri was out. Apparently, she was sick. And then this week, she was out again. So I've been super paranoid about this new position at HitFix affecting her availability with Schmoes. But before we started this podcast, she tweeted me and put my worries to rest and said that she'll be back next week and there's nothing to worry about. She was just sick or on vacation. And so crisis averted, luckily.
Oh, really? I didn't even know she tweeted you. So
it was right before we started.
Well, when you mentioned this to me off air, I instantly thought about, and I touched on this on Schmoeville podcast very briefly the other week, where Christian just threw out that Copster got promoted. And I couldn't decide whether he was just joking around because Miri was sick or if that was a legitimate thing. So I guess he meant that Copster had been promoted just the weeks that Miri was out, if she's in fact coming back. I don't know. That's how I read into it. But I remember the second you brought up, hey, Miri's gone again, I was like, wait a minute. They just promoted Copster. And I thought for sure that Miri was gone, but I thought it was curious that they didn't address it at all. Like they had gone several weeks without talking about it. So part of me was like, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But it was something.
See, I mean, anytime someone gets another position, I kind of get worried because, as I've said earlier, a lot of people are there for the show or on the show when they can be, when they're available to. Mark misses on average 2 shows a month because he's doing his stand-up comedy. So same thing with Tiffany. She's doing 20 different things at once. She's there when she can be.
Right.
So anytime another opportunity comes along, it's just I have this inner sense to get worried about it. But luckily, there's nothing to worry about here. But I didn't know Copster was promoted.
Well, again,
I know Ace was. They made a big deal about Ace based on his coverage at Comic-Con.
Right.
But Copster, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why I just kind of thought I couldn't tell if it was something that they just threw out there and were just making a joke or if it was legit or whatever. So, but I'm glad that she tweeted at you. I'm glad to have closure on that. And hopefully, watch her come back next week and it'll be her announcement that she's leaving the show.
I know.
That would suck. No.
I want to make a point about Ken Knapsack.
Okay, I do want to talk about Ken. We'll get to Ken shortly.
Okay.
So I just want to talk about the people at the main table. We had Christian, Sasha, Makuga, and Brett. Ellis was off doing stand-up. Which is funny because I talked to Riley earlier last week and I was like, hey, get on the main table. Screw Brett, right? And again, Brett was there, which is fine, but I want to see Riley get up there.
Do you think they bicker about who gets a seat at the main table?
No, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's not that big. I just don't think it's a big deal to them. I think that Riley was jokingly saying that he wanted to be at the main table, and I believe it. But I mean, I don't think it's truly that big of a deal. I mean, I feel like
he's got seniority.
If we want to talk specifically about Riley, I mean, he gets plenty of airtime anyway. I think the only problem with Brett is that he has no reason to stick around after Brett flicks. You know what I mean? Like if Brett's to the Future, excuse me. If Brett's only thing is to retrospectively reviewing movies, then he should only be there for 30 minutes, and because they're just going to talk about things. And I know Brett's trying to get more into movies, so if he's going to do that, then I get it. But if he's going to stay busy and only watch rentals at home, then I don't understand why he's at the main table. Because
I definitely want more Brett.
I love Brett, but I mean, I just think he only offers one thing, and that's how he was branded. Like that's what they introduced him as. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't change. I just wish it was more. It's just not clear to me what they're doing with Brett. So, that's fine. And the fact that he mentioned that he set out last week because of the commenters. So also,
were they joking or was that truth?
I would assume it's true. I mean, I know that they were making fun of it, but I took it as he was being serious. I don't know.
It also works as a joke for any time he's absent from the show.
I know. It could be either one, but I took it as it was the truth. So, but who knows, really?
Is he in your top 3 favorite Schmoes right now?
No. No.
Top 5?
I don't know. Don't make me rank them. I haven't thought about it. I don't really think I love them all equally.
Don't you hate when people randomly ask for rankings without any preparation?
Oh man, this is gonna be awkward when I talk to Christian next. No, I'm just kidding. So
peace and love.
I do love the inside joke that Brett gets like shunned now. Whenever Christian will ask Brett a question and then instantly cut him off, I find that hilarious. They've been doing that a lot lately. Also love the story about Ellis. The fact that it was like Christian was talking shit about him behind his back. I love that element. Do more of that, please. I love the story about Ellis and the John Williams thing because as we know Ellis on screen, like I've met Ellis a couple times, so I could see the Ellis that I know would do what Christian said, but the Ellis that appears on screen, it's so out of character.
He's been short-tempered of late.
I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I love when they express themselves. That makes it even more raw, in my opinion. But I just thought it was hilarious that it was so weird to hear that story because you wouldn't think Mark would ever do that. Like, oh, I'm just going to work on my stand-up.
I mean, typically Christian's the one who expresses the outrage at the live chat, and lately Ellis is the one who's been sounding off, between both networks. He kind of sounded off on Collider a bit recently about people commenting and not commenting responsibly. Or maybe it was Schmoes. Either way,
he did that on Movie Talk one day. He did that on Movie Talk one day when it came to the Wonder Woman trailer.
Right. But yeah, he's been short fused lately. I like seeing even keel Ellis expressing some anger. I like seeing that side of him.
You know what's a weird element is hearing, and they did this on Thursday's show, Christian brought up smoking weed and the fact that he thought it was great. I've heard him tell stories about him being high, seeing movies or whatever, but I thought that's one particular element that surprised me about the show, because I know they drink beer on there sometimes, but for some reason it never gets to that point where it's like talking about substances and stuff. I know that sounds really stupid to word it that way, but it was just, they never really talk about that kind of thing. And the fact that they did was interesting only because they seem to be cutting back on their cussing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think it's because they're part of a kind of a more corporate setup now, Complex, Collider. I think they were probably asked to tone it down a little bit.
I don't think so, though. Because they got away with it.
They don't drink as much either.
That's true. They got away with it for so long, though. And the fact that
go back to the Toad Hop days. Go back to the Toad Hop days. Everybody was shit-faced in the Toad Hop days. I mean, Christian had a very different energy back then. He was kind of almost half yelling half the show because it was so loud in there. So now it's a bit more toned down. It's a bit more relaxed. It's still as good as it's ever been, but I think they have to uphold a certain standard now that they're part of Complex, Collider, etc.
I just don't know. I don't know if that's it. There's got to be something else to it because they got away with it for so long. And Campia would go nuts, and not just on screen. Like when he gets pissed online, he gets pissed online, and I like that about him personally, but. There's got to be something else. I don't know if it's something like the fact that they're a Roku app now or something like it could be multiple things. But even when, it could be Collider only because Makuga during the Rogue One reaction, he said that someone was an A-hat. And I was like, really? Yeah. You're not even allowed to say ass-hat anymore? So I'm very curious as to why they've toned down the cussing. I don't know.
I would bet almost anything that they are held to a certain standard because of Complex and Collider. And John Schnepp is known for having the mouth of a drunken sailor, and yet he's got to tone it down too, and it's because of these reasons.
How funny was Brett's rating system, by the way?
The negative, yeah, that's different. I like it. I like it. What do you think of the new Schmo system, for that matter?
You know what? I have no idea what it is. I haven't watched one of their reviews since they came out with it.
It's Rotten Tomatoes percentages, basically. 75%, 98%. It's not an aggregate of everybody's reviews, obviously, but it's their percentage in a similar fashion as Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Where 95% is a high A, obviously. and so on and so forth. So it's,
I mean,
it's just
I'm fine with it. I mean, it's just the rating. I mean, to me, it makes no difference if you say 2.5 out of 5 or 50%. It makes no difference to me. I'm smart enough that I can gauge what that means. So I mean, I'm fine with it.
we're so used to seeing percentages out of 100, so it makes sense that they would just adapt to what people are used to seeing.
Do they still say schmo it? Like, do they call it like 75? Well, that wouldn't make any sense. 75% schmoes. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, there's some name for it, but it's more in line with what people are used to seeing percentage-wise. What do you think of the new artwork on the channel?
It's fine. I mean, going back to what I said earlier, I mean, Schmoes Know sort of feels like the guys, they're still in their basement, in their mom's basement, doing the YouTube channel, which I think is totally fine. But even with like the Schmoes Know Show logo, the black and white one, I don't know who did it. I think it doesn't look as big as they are to me. Like I look at how simple like mine and your podcast logos are, and I feel like it fits, but like they're big, and you look at someone like Screen Junkies or someone else who's got this big, really super professional, good looking artwork. I just feel like it's still below them. Like, and I'm not saying the artwork is bad, but I'm just looking at it like, I think you're bigger than this. And I know that sort of contradicts the guys in their basement sort of thing, but I don't know. I expected like the announcement was, here's our new artwork. And I look at it and I'm like, well, I could have done that for you. I don't know.
I own a marketing business in my real life. And one of the main rules of marketing is to keep your branding consistent across all materials. And so I wish they had a more consistent branding across the channel to the shows. And of all their artwork, I do think that the Schmoes Know live show logo and art is the best art that they have. And if I was running the channel, I would have it reflect on the channel itself in place of what they just added. So I would keep things consistent is my point. But obviously YouTube marketing rules can be their own thing from what marketing rules I have to follow in my day-to-day career.
Right. So it's just the banner, though. They didn't change the intro to the reviews or anything. Right.
The small photo logo is also different.
Okay. Right. Now it's the Pulp Fiction t-shirt design.
Exactly.
So that could be better. I mean, they just took the t-shirt design. So I don't know. That's the thing. And it also doesn't match the banner.
Right. It's clashing in that sense, too. So I would keep it consistent from the live show to the channel, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And unfortunately, we fell under the category of people who weren't very nice to Christian about it, but I don't know.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself, Snelling.
For sure. So what I was going to next from the Brett's rating system was that, for one, it was hilarious to hear RB3 cackling throughout the entire episode. I thought that was hilarious. But more importantly, I've said this a lot on Schmoeville, how fucking good is RB3? Like, he was on Schmoeville podcast, and I don't know if it was because it was like early in the morning, but he was a lot more reserved. I think he was nervous, and that's fine. I have an anxiety issues, like a lot of them. So I understand having horrible nerves. But I think it just speaks so much to how much better he has gotten on the mic. RB3 is kicking ass on all fronts. And that's all I want to say about it. I've said it before. What do you think?
Yeah, he is getting more and more comfortable with each episode. I wish he would get a bit more time from week to week, but as you grow more comfortable, you'll get more time. And confidence-wise, I think he's getting there. I definitely think he's getting there. But I like his presence in general. I like what he brings. I like his vibe. I like his energy. I like what he does behind the scenes. The SK podcast feed is why I think they have a code of conduct in their contract with Complex/Collider, because they have to put all of their more risque videos on the SK podcast feed. So that is my theory as to why they have to tone down their language and what they put out there now.
Gotcha.
If you look at that feed, they've got a variety of different things, no holds bar.
Right. I definitely see what you're saying. But by the way, I think that channel does a great job. Not just because my podcast is on it, but I think their videos are genuinely hilarious. So, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I don't really have that many bullet points to talk about on this episode.
Let's talk Ken for one quick
I do.
minute.
That's what I was gonna say. I want you to get what you have to say about Ken out of here, and then we'll just wrap it up. Sound good?
Look, everybody knows that Christian got Ken a gig at Screen Junkies, and the same goes for JTE. So I was always curious, how were they going to handle both Schmoes and Screen Junkie responsibilities at the same time? And for the most part, they've both have been good sports about making time for both. But Ken has the added responsibility of writing the news every week, and that's a tall order, especially when you're working a full-time job right up until the point where you arrive at Schmoes. In fact, that's why they made the start time later, was to accommodate those guys so they could get over to Burbank. Actually, in recent weeks, I've felt like Ken wasn't completely into it anymore.
Yeah,
I felt like he didn't have the same level of participation or just overall. He didn't have his usual energy. Let's just put it at that. However, this past show, he absolutely crushed it. His news segment was the best it's been in a long time.
Yeah.
He was energized, probably because of Rogue One, but this week was the Ken that we all know and love. So I'm sure it's because of the added responsibilities at Screen Junkies and having to be on for 2 channels within the same day. Because Screen Junkies, that is hard work. They are constantly going at it all day long. That is not an easy place to work, and then just to do the same thing later that night and be fresh and energetic and whatnot. So I just want to say, Ken Knapsack, I was ready to give him some criticism, but he completely redeemed himself this week.
Way to go, Ken! You're the man. We love you.
No JTE though.
Yeah, no JTE. That's true.
Do you miss JTE when he's not on the show?
No. I mean, I like JTE, but when I think of the Schmoes Know Show, I think I just, even more than Ken to me, and again, I'm only really experienced with Phase 6 for the most part. So I know JTE was a huge part of past phases. But to me, JTE is still Team Screen Junkies, and I know that they make jokes about that. But that's just how I take it. He's not really my dad. He's my stepdad. So and not to say, and again, it's not anything against him. It's just how I was brought into the show, and that's just how I take him. So it doesn't. I like his input for sure, but when he's not there, it doesn't feel like it's anything less than the Schmoes Know Show. So,
see, I've watched him evolve. He started as Josh Tapia, then he became JTI, then JTE, and now he's just a bona fide heel. He is one of their favorite heels now, like in wrestling. And so I feel like the show is missing something when he's not there. And I feel like Finstock is better off, or Tom, either or. I think he is better in his element with JTE there alongside him. Goodness gracious.
I'm glad you brought up Finstock. I was ready to wrap this up, but I actually want to bring this up. I saw a tweet he made, and I know that he is under this guise of Bob Finstock or whatever, but I was like, I didn't even think it was funny, and I love Finstock. Hold on, let me see. Oh, God, a tweet he responded to about the conviction of Brendan Dassey from Making a Murderer. He tweeted, "Well, they got one retard off. Let's see what happens to the other." I was like, "Yikes!" I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh at that. Like if he said it as Finstock, I would laugh because I would just take it as comedy, and I think comedy is a channel that you can say stuff like that. But if his Twitter is him being Tom, then I saw it and I was like, "Yikes!" Like that, I think he might have crossed the line there. I don't know.
Yeah, I would pull that one back if I was him.
And right now it's his top tweet still, so I don't know. Just think about that stuff, Tom. Just think about that. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up. We've gone on long enough, and this has been a really dense, informative, interesting podcast, and I have you to thank for that, because you brought your A game. You said you had like 3 pages of notes, which is amazing, because I only have like 1, and I'm the host of this podcast. I know you have a lot more to say. I 100% want you to come back to the Schmoeville podcast. Everybody give Brian some love on Twitter, and I'll give you the floor and let you plug whatever you want to plug. But everyone, just support Brian. What do you got?
Well, thank you, Snelling. I really appreciate that. You guys can follow me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. That's my personal account. You can follow my podcast at Film Schlubs. That's SCH. You can also subscribe and listen to Film Schlubs wherever podcasts are found. You can find all of our past episodes at filmschlubspodcast.com. We talk TV and movies on a weekly basis, or as often as we can. I also conduct interviews with movie screenwriters, directors, producers, but mostly TV showrunners, actors, writers, directors. My last 2 guests included Better Call Saul showrunner Peter Gould, as well as Better Call Saul actor Ray Seahorn. She plays Kim. I've also got an interview coming out with Preacher showrunner, former Breaking Bad writer Sam Catlin. So in closing, I just want to say thanks again to Mr. Snelling for having me on, and for everyone listening, of course. So I hope everyone understands that I mean nothing but peace and love when it comes to Schmoes and Collider. I'm a huge fan of the network, so any suggestions, criticism, or observations are well-intentioned. There's just no reason why Collider and Schmoes shouldn't be growing at a quicker rate and have the same numbers as Stuckman or John. So I really believe the Schmoedown can be their channel's defining program, the network's defining program, all the movie fights. And as long as you bring something more than just league play. So Jeopardy is a pop culture institution. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire took over the world at one point. The beauty is people can play along from home, whether JTE is competing or Matt Damon is competing. So that is why this channel still has room to grow, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it happen. So I've said it all.
There you go. Everybody go give Brian some love. Again, you can follow me on my copycat podcast of Film Schlubs. I call it Film Beef. We review movies every week. We recap TV shows like Mr. Robot. So come check us out anywhere you can find podcasts as well, and also the Film Beef YouTube channel. I'm putting up more video content up there, which has been a lot of fun. I'm also putting up every podcast there as well. So go ahead and subscribe to Film Beef and get all of the content I'm producing. And we're about to start a really cool Harry Potter competition. Our friend Jay, who was on Schmoeville, is pitting Phil and I against each other, and we basically predicted what each other's rankings are of the Harry Potter films. And then we're going to review every Harry Potter film and rank them and give them the Film Beef rating. And then we're going to, again, guess our rankings. And there's a point system involved that we're going to work out. All of that's coming. I can better explain it on more content. But if you're a muggle out there and you want more of the wizarding world, hang out with us starting next month, and we're doing that lead up to Fantastic Beasts and where to find them, and I'm stupid excited about it. And you can follow me on Twitter at FilmBeef. Snell, let's wrap this up. We will see you next week on Schmoeville number 21. Take it easy, guys, and be nice in the comments.